You're watching Saturday Anime on the Sci-Fi Channel.
It seems only fitting that on the season finale of Anime Abandon, our 26th episode, that we look at a game changer. A film that has surpassed its contemporaries and achieved mainstream acceptance and acclaim. A film lauded not only for its technical achievements, but also for its high-minded themes of human origin and condition. A film that not only defines a large number of old-school otaku's anime history, but also a film that defines what animation is capable of. The one and only Akira. Oh, and the dub fucking sucks!
Greetings, and welcome to the Studio Chojin YouTube channel, or as I like to call it, the depths of fucking obscurity, because, let's be honest, nobody cares about my stupid shit. Nobody is actually watching any of my dumb videos, which in all honesty is cool with me. I actually think it's kind of awesome, because this is the thing. Anybody could make a video for a huge audience. Anybody could make a video for 100,000 subscribers. But what kind of person would make a video for 6 subscribers? If I was a betting man, I would probably say a lonely idiot with too much free time on their hands. And guess what? I am that idiot, and I'm fucking proud of it, I might add, because I'm very grateful for my 6 subscribers, and I also really like making videos. Now, some people would say I was wasting my time. In fact, all people would probably say I was wasting my time, but what they think of as a waste of time, I like to think of as dedication. So that's right, I am totally dedicated to wasting as much time as humanly possible. Your time, my time, your fucking pet's time, whether it's full-time, part-time, or overtime, I'll fucking be there. If you have time, please let me be the one to waste it for you. Now, I won't lie, it would be nice to be more successful, and I think the key to success is giving people what they want. And after I made my Grave of the Fireflies video, I had some people ask me to do more responses to Bennett. So it seemed like a no-brainer. People like hearing me respond to Bennett, so it's logical. Give the people what they want. But I kind of went back and forth over it. I mean, I don't just make videos to get views, and one and done felt like enough. I mean, I don't want to be the guy who's constantly talking about Bennett. Plus, the levels of stupidity in Bennett's Fireflies video was fucking astounding. I mean, there is no way he could have another video with that much stupid shit. But then, I watched Bennett's Akira video, and it turned out I underestimated our newsy hat wearing friend, and if there's one thing you should not underestimate, it's Bennett's ability to be stupid. So, here we are again, another video and another response. Now I realize at this point I'm supposed to do some kind of disclaimer. I'm supposed to say something to the effect of, this video is not meant as an attack on Bennett. I am merely doing this as a form of constructive criticism because I want to see Bennett's content grow and get better. And as part of the online anime community, I think polite, quality discourse is important, and it's the best way for our hobby to grow. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that shit because it wouldn't be honest. I don't fucking believe it. Everybody in the world enjoys calling out other people's stupidity, and if they say they don't, they're fucking lying. And like I said to Razorfist, I may be a scumbag, but I'm an honest scumbag. I also realize there are people who don't like it when I call Bennett stupid, but they're gonna have to get over it, or they're gonna have to find some other video to watch, because there's gonna be a lot of that shit in this fucking video. And just to be fair, just because I call Bennett stupid, that doesn't mean I think I'm smart. I'm as dumb as a fucking sack of bricks, but the beauty is, I don't have to be smart to call somebody else stupid. I just have to be less dumb than they are. And being an idiot myself kind of makes me an expert in other idiots, because as any middle schooler could tell you, it takes one to know one. So, with all that shit said, let's get fucking rambling, shall we?
I argued with myself if I should do a plot point by plot point review since Akira has the narrative density of a dying sun, but I think the best way to look at the film is through the viewpoint of someone seeing it for the first time. It's 1991, and we know nothing of the 2,000-page manga, we know little if anything about anime, and our best friend has rented the movie and is forcing us to watch it under the pretense that it will blow our minds. The only thing we know is that it's a cartoon movie from Japan.
Hey man, that stuff will stunt your growth.
How many times do I have to tell you punks? At least he's a paying customer.
Then I won't tell him what's in it, huh?
and the voice acting sucks a bag of turds. Yes, there exists today a redub that's widely available and vastly superior, featuring that lovable Johnny Young Bosch, but you'd only be getting half the experience.
We haven't even gotten started yet, and we've already reached the fundamental problem with Bennett's video. You see, Bennett's review is not a review of Akira the film, it's a review of the 1991 streamlined version of the movie. Specifically, Streamline's 1994 VHS re-release of Akira. This cassette that Bennett holds up at the beginning of the video, this isn't a prop, this is actually what he's using to do his review. We know this is true because not only do all of the clips he uses look like shit, but they're all also in the 4:3 aspect ratio, which is going to become an issue later. In case you are wondering, the Akira film did not go out of print in 1994. Since 1994, the film has been released on Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray. There were several versions of the movie available at the time of Bennett's video. He didn't have to review a VHS tape. He chose to review a VHS tape of his own volition, which begs the question, what is the value in reviewing a VHS tape from 1994? How would reviewing a 1994 VHS tape benefit somebody in 2019 or in 2012 when Bennett originally posted this video? Well, let's hear Bennett explain why, out of all of the versions of the movie to choose from, he chose to review a 20-year-old copy of the movie.
Aeschylus once wrote, "The reward of suffering is experience. And by God, you will gain experience."
Does that make any fucking sense to you? Aeschylus said some shit once, so he's gonna fucking review a VHS tape in the 21st century. Okay, so as I stated before, Bennett is reviewing a VHS re-release of Akira from 1994. Bennett's VHS tape contains the dub, created by Electric Media in 1989, and it was originally released by Streamline for the home market in 1991. People commonly refer to this version of the movie as the Streamline dub, even though that's not technically correct. It wasn't dubbed by Streamline, it was only distributed by them. But for the sake of keeping things easy, I'm still going to refer to it as the Streamline dub. Now, I like the Streamline dub. I think Cam Clark gives a really good performance as Kaneda. But the script to the Streamline dub is kind of clunky, and they don't do a great job of translating the material. A better version of the film was released on DVD in 2001 by Pioneer. Unlike the Streamline version, the Pioneer release contains a widescreen version of the film with an entirely new dub track, as well as a subtitled version of the original Japanese release. What makes the Pioneer release of Akira important is that Pioneer commissioned the company Animes to retranslate the script for Akira to create a new dub version of the film, as well as a subtitled version that is much more faithful to the original Japanese dialogue. The Pioneer version clears up a lot of things that were muddled in the Streamline version. For example, in the Streamline version, I always thought the scene of Kaneda crashing the motorcycle after Yamagata's death was kind of confusing. It just seems like he crashes it randomly.
What are you doing? So, Tetsuo wants a bike. Bastard!
But in the Pioneer dub and the subtitled version of the film, it becomes clear Kaneda crashes the bike because it was Yamagata's bike, and Kaneda is crashing the bike as a tribute. Kaneda is sending Yamagata his bike in the afterlife.
What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna go send Yamagata his wheels.
You dumb bastard!
Even though the Streamline version of the film isn't as good as the Pioneer version, don't take that to mean the Streamline version is unwatchable. It isn't. It can be a little confusing at times, but it's not like confusing like in the same way clown porn is confusing. You know, where you're not sure what's going on and things seem really weird and you're strangely aroused? Anyway, the Streamline version is not unwatchable. It just requires you to pay a little bit more attention. Another cool addition to the 2001 Pioneer version of the film is the capsule mode. When the capsule mode is turned on, it translates all of the text and all of the graffiti in the film, which is important because the signs and the graffiti actually explain a lot about the politics and geography of the world. The 1994 VHS tape Bennett is watching doesn't translate any of the text. I know this because, like Bennett, I also have the same fucking VHS VHS tape. And fuck you to Bennett for making me dig this shit out of my goddamn basement. Since 2001, the Pioneer version of the movie has been widely available and very easy to find. The Pioneer version of the film was also re-released in 2004 by Manga Entertainment, then released again in 2009 by Bandai. So Bennett has no excuse. He very easily could have found the Pioneer dub, or at the very least a widescreen version of the film. But instead of reviewing any of those, Bennett chose to review the fucking worst version of the film possible. This is the definition of bad faith arguing. Bennett's video should have a fucking asterisk next to the word Akira. This is the equivalent of Bennett doing a review for Blade Runner, but instead of reviewing the final cut or the director's cut, he's reviewing a fucking VHS tape of the theatrical cut, and he just bitches about the fucking voiceover the whole way through. Rather than give a thoughtful or educated review of Akira, the movie, Bennett is more concerned with making bad voice acting jokes, which only applies to the streamlined dub. Which I guess we can't blame him, because could you imagine if we missed out on hilarious comedy like this?
Everyone sounds like they're taking speech lessons from Film Brain. Ayo!
And if that didn't tickle your funny bone, wait till Bennett does this. If you ask me, the reason Bennett is framing his review this way is because he's fucking lazy. He can't be bothered informing his audience about the nuances of the different versions of the film. He can't be bothered doing any kind of meaningful analysis of the film. All he wants to do is his fucking hacky comedy. Or maybe he's not lazy, maybe he's just fucking broke. Judging from some of the shit he reviews on his channel, I think he gets his anime from fucking garage sales. Maybe a VHS tape is all this broke motherfucker can afford. I mean, it seems pretty obvious now that Bennett's fucking poor. He's been wearing the same hat since the fucking first term of the Obama administration. I think we need to start a GoFundMe to get my man here some new fucking gear. Because despite what he's probably learned from other YouTubers, living your life like a fucking cartoon character where you just wear the same shit every day, it's not fucking cool. It's fucking lame.
Meanwhile, somewhere else, a wounded man is leading a little blue boy to someplace during a protest? I'm sorry, did we switch movies all of a sudden? There's just so many questions that are popping up, like, why are people protesting? Who's the guy leading the little kid? Why is the kid blue? Where are they going?
Akira is by no means a perfect film, and nor should it be. No film is perfect. But all the problems Bennett brings up are not problems. They're things that are explained in the movie. All Bennett had to do was pay attention. Let's address Bennett's questions right now.
Why are people protesting?
People are protesting because they lost their jobs from tax reforms enacted by the Prime Minister, and the chairman of the opposition party instructed his organizations to stage a general strike. This is explained in the first fucking 2 minutes of the film.
Scores of men and women who lost their jobs under the tax reforms enacted by the former Prime Minister are rioting everywhere. The chairman of the opposition parties have decided not to attend a mediation council meeting and instead have instructed their organizations to stage a general strike.
There are also student groups protesting for the same reason. And if Bennett was watching any other version of the movie, instead of a fucking VHS tape from 1994, he would have seen graffiti that mentions the strike.
Who's the guy leading the little kid?
He's a member of the resistance that was sent to break the kid out of the lab, which was explained in this scene.
Another guinea pig?
You got it. That night we almost got away with number 26. He got mixed up with a bike punk out on the old highway. After they scraped the kid off the pavement, they carted him away.
Why is the kid blue?
Because he was the subject of a government experiment that gave him psychic powers, as shown in this scene. Also, from a character design perspective, if Takashi and the other psychic children have a different complexion from normal humans, it helps inform the audience that there's something special about them.
Where are they going?
They're going to meet up with the other members of the resistance. That's why the man yells to Takashi, "Tell Roy."
Escape. Hurry. Don't let them catch you. Tell Roy.
Roy is what the streamlined version calls Ryu. I don't know why, they just fucking do.
Today we have the privilege of the internet, and we can look up background information that the film never covers or barely glosses over, like the politics of the setting, for instance. But how many people back then even knew that the film was based off a comic? The Akira manga was made available in America in traditional comic book format from Marvel's Epic imprint starting in 1988, but the entire run wasn't completed until 1995, 4 years after Akira was made available on VHS. So for the longest time, otaku just had to take what the film gave them and learn to live with unanswered questions. Still, even if all the chapters were widely available back then, it still doesn't help the fact that, as an adaptation, the film is pretty incoherent.
I found that clip kind of interesting because it gives us a little bit of insight into Bennett's thought process. If Bennett doesn't understand something about a movie, he looks it up on the internet. He tries to find someone or something to give him information. I'm a little different. Maybe it's because I grew up in a time before Wikipedia. But if I don't understand something about a movie, I watch it again. I think it's a byproduct of this bad habit I have. It's called thinking for myself. I don't like people telling me what or fucking how to think. Watching a movie multiple times will help you catch little details you might have missed the first time. It also allows you to focus on different aspects of the film, and it lets you consider things from a different point of view. Bennett also mentions that the Epic Comics version of Akira had finished its run in 1995. But what he doesn't seem to know is that by May of 1991, the time the version of Akira Bennett is reviewing came out, Epic had already translated the first 4.5 volumes of Akira. Specifically, Epic had translated everything up to page 296 of Volume 5. In other words, 74.8% of the Akira manga had been translated into English at the time of the film's American video release. Now in Japan, when Akira was released theatrically, only 4 volumes of the manga had been released, or 61.2% of the story was available. Which means American fans who were reading the American version of the manga knew more about the Akira story at the time of Akira's American VHS release than Japanese fans did at the time of Akira's theatrical release. Now, admittedly, as Bennett mentions, none of this is relevant to Akira the film as an adaptation of the manga. But he's the one who's bringing this shit up, and if he's gonna fucking bring it up, he should at least get his facts right. What this says to me is that once again, just like with Grave of the Fireflies, Bennett doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. It also invalidates his bullshit framing device, because not everyone was just wandering into a video store in the 90s and randomly picking up Akira. The fact that Marvel was releasing the Akira manga means there were plenty of people out there who were familiar with the Akira story.
Still, even if all the chapters were widely available back then, it still doesn't help the fact that, as an adaptation, the film is pretty incoherent. Plot elements and ideas are brought up, but they're never really expounded upon. They're just there because they were in the manga, and the film doesn't have the time to give them the attention they need.
Bennett really needs to shut the fuck up about the adaptation problems with Akira, because he never read the manga as evidenced here.
Sure, his sudden heel turn to angsty bad guy was jarring, but again, I think that's just a product of the adaptation.
Yes, he thinks it's a product of the adaptation, because just like Grave of the Fireflies, he's never read the fucking book. He's just repeating shit he's heard. He's heard people say Akira is a bad adaptation, so he's just repeating it. He doesn't know what he's fucking talking about. Now, from my point of view, I don't really think of Akira as an adaptation of the manga. I think of it more as a different version of the same story. But in all fairness, Akira the film does cover a lot of the same ground as the manga, specifically the first 3 volumes. And considering all the information in those books, I think the Akira film does a good job of condensing it all down. Really, the narrative doesn't start to suffer till the final act of the movie. At this point, Bennett is only 5 minutes into the film. Everything concerning the plot has already been explained very fucking clearly. He is just not paying attention.
So Kaneda manages to get his gang out of the police station along with a girl named Kay. No, not that Kay. He tries to lay the moves on her, but she's not having any of it.
Well, that's a new way to pick up a girl. What do you delinquents know about politics anyway?
Search me, sister. I don't know thing one about why you guys are protesting. Are you under dictatorship rule? Was that brought about because of the Third World War? How did that start anyway? If Kaneda lives in the same area as you guys do, how come he doesn't know any— Okay, let's just say fairies did it and move on. Kay loses Kaneda right as a bomb we didn't know about blows up part of the police station. Then the movie immediately cuts to a completely unrelated scene and never follows up on what happened. Gee, why would we want to know trivial details like why people are resorting to terrorism and bombing police stations?
People are blowing up police stations because, as was explained in the first 2 minutes of the movie, there is massive unemployment and people have been forced to strike. Also, the bomb was set up earlier. When Kaneda and the others leave the interrogation room, there's a dude who tries to detonate a grenade. The grenade appears to be a dud, so another cop picks it up and he brings it with him into another room. Evidently, the grenade wasn't a dud and it just went off later than expected. Now, it is possible Bennett missed this because he's watching a fucking full-screen VHS tape from 1994, and the officer with the grenade is a little hard to see because he's cut off by the picture frame. But quite frankly, even if Bennett was watching a widescreen version of the film, he probably still wouldn't have seen it, because as we've seen so far, and as we will continue to see, Bennett will miss information even when it's explicitly told to him. Also, it was Akira that caused World War III. The film basically spells it out for the audience in the beginning when it superimposes his name over the blast crater. And if that isn't clear enough, it's mentioned in the scene when the Colonel addresses the government officials. As is the case with a lot of the streamlined dub, the dialogue is a little clunky.
Once and for all, we still have no evidence Akira had anything to do with the Great War.
It's very clear now. We're going to have to suffer through another disaster till you're convinced. If you don't open your eyes, we're all finished.
And it's made much clearer in the Pioneer version.
There's still no proof that the last World War was caused by Akira, in my opinion. And what makes
Don't you understand? Unless an Akira disaster actually happens, don't you people understand anything?
And the reason Kay blows off Kaneda is because as far as she knows, he's just a guy hitting on her. And just because somebody lives in a city, that doesn't automatically mean they're an expert in the city's politics. Dumb people exist, and uninformed people exist. After all, Bennett, you are living proof of this.
Tetsuo gets it in his head that he should find Akira, and suddenly divines his location. Because fairies, alright? Actually, what I really want to know is, do the children want or don't want Akira to be found? You'd think that would be a simple question to answer, but the actions of the children are so diametrically opposed to what they say they want that it comes off like they're trying to play a game of reverse psychology.
Where is this thing called Akira?
What?
Kyoko told us. Bring Akira back to us. If that happens, no one can stop us. So we have to stop you.
So if the children didn't want Tetsuo near Akira, why the fuck did they tell him about Akira? He didn't know that Akira existed, he just knew the name. Also, if the children were to become unstoppable if they're reunited with Akira, why would they not want Tetsuo to lead them to Akira? And what would they be doing that people would be powerless to stop them from doing?
You're gonna tell me where Akira is.
You know it.
Huh? The Olympic Stadium? The Underground?
No! You mustn't! It's wrong!
Okay, so they know where Akira is being held. So why the fuck do they need Tetsuo? Wait a minute. I thought they didn't want Tetsuo to go... Then why do they keep...
The children don't want Tetsuo to find Akira, because that is what's going to lead to the destruction of Neo Tokyo. That's what Kyoko saw in her vision, and that's why she warned the Colonel about Tetsuo. Takashi is just repeating what Kyoko said earlier in the film. Tetsuo already knows about Akira. He has known about Akira since he was first treated by the doctor. We know this because Tetsuo said Akira's name to himself when he was in that centrifuge thing. Then, when Tetsuo escaped the hospital, he had more visions of Akira, as well as visions about the destruction of Neo Tokyo. Tetsuo knows Akira's name because he knows Akira exists. The scene Bennett dismissed as mindfuckery.
With seemingly so much lost in the process of making it to the big screen, was there anything that survived the adaptation? The mindfuckery. That should be pristine.
The scene Bennett dismissed as mindfuckery was foreshadowing the coming destruction as well as establishing Tetsuo is already aware of Akira. Now, why Tetsuo is aware of Akira, or how he knows Akira's location, is a matter of interpretation. In the streamlined version of the film, it's insinuated Tetsuo already subconsciously knows the location of Akira.
You're gonna tell me where Akira is.
You know it.
Huh? The Olympic Stadium? The Underground?
No! You mustn't! It's wrong!
Whereas in the Pioneer version, it's hinted Tetsuo discovers Akira's location by reading Kyoko's mind.
Where Where's this Akira?
I won't tell.
Olympic Stadium? Underground?
No, don't! What you're thinking is wrong, Akira is...
Now, neither of these interpretations are inherently right or wrong. It just depends on how you want to look at the film.
Well, that wild hair up Tetsuo's ass ain't coming out anytime soon, and he makes up for Olympic Stadium, where Akira is being held. Again, thank you, Tammy Faye Baker. Kei and Kaneda, meanwhile, are being held prisoner when Kei finally explains what in the world is going on. Or at least what passes for an explanation.
We've reached an interesting point in Bennett's review. Bennett has removed an entire section from his original video, and he says it's because of content ID bots. Now, I think this is true. I think it's very likely Bennett did in fact get a content ID claim on his video. But I also think it's not the whole story. I think it's possible Bennett is not being completely honest. You're probably saying to yourself, Reverend Paul, why would you say such a thing? Well, the reason I'm saying that is because the section Bennett removed has some of the dumbest shit I have ever seen, and it exposes Bennett for the idiot he really is. I think what might have happened was Bennett probably got tired of people pointing out in the comments how stupid he was and how he just missed the point of the scene altogether. So when he eventually got a content ID claim, he used that as an opportunity to remove this section from the video, and it saved him the hassle of having to make a correction or address his stupidity. Now, once again, I'm not saying for a fact this is what happened. I'm just saying it's possible. And quite frankly, I'm hoping it's the case because the section Bennett removed is so embarrassing. I'm hoping he was self-aware enough to cut that part out and blame it on content ID bots. Because if he didn't, and he actually thinks the shit he says in this section is perfectly okay, that's even more sad. So anyway, with all that said, let's take a look at the part of the video Bennett removed.
Kei and Kaneda, meanwhile, are being held prisoner when Kei finally explains what in the world is going on. Or at least what passes for an explanation.
A human being, you know, achieves a whole lot of things in a lifetime, right? Like discovering things and making things like houses and motorbikes and bridges and towns, rockets. Where does that tremendous knowledge and energy all come from?
Well, the knowledge comes from the recorded observations of people's past and present being handed down from generation to...
When you think about it, each life form must have its own energy.
Well,
Wait a minute, I'm still on the passing of history and knowledge. Where the fuck did the transference of energy come into play?
I'm talking about the life force that exists, even perhaps in water and atmosphere. Perhaps even in space dust.
Well, space stuff is mainly just hydrogen and helium atoms and a scattering of carbon.
They must hold some memory locked inside.
No, they don't. This is not Assassin's Creed. There is no such thing as ancestral memory.
Perhaps all things in existence have that memory. But what if the order of things were disturbed? If through experimentation an amoeba were transfused with the power of a human being?
Then amoebas will finally have something to read about in comic books. What the fuck does this have to do with anything?
Amoebas don't make motorcycles and atomic bombs.
What?
Amoebas don't make motorcycles and atomic bombs.
Okay, yeah, they don't, but you know what? Fuck it. I want to see where she's going with this.
They only eat up anything that happens into their way.
You mean Tetsuo? You're saying he has that kind of power?
Before, there were those men who tried to harness such energy. At the request of the Executive Council, they failed, and the destruction of Tokyo was inevitable.
But this time, that energy will be ours.
Okay, so Tetsuo was given the power of amoebas, and the cataclysm that destroyed Tokyo 31 years ago was the power of amoebas. Now everything is crystal clear. Amoebas? Really? Is this movie seriously saying that Tetsuo can fly, launch mine bullets, and deflect gunfire because... amoebas? Really?
No, you dumb fuck. That isn't what the movie is saying at all. Okay, I'm sorry. I know people don't like it when I call Bennett dumb, but how else would you describe the shit he just said? Seriously, homeboy here has been bitching from minute one that the film isn't explaining anything to him. Then, when the film blatantly explains itself to him, he fucking argues with the movie, then completely misunderstands what the film is trying to say. Kei is not saying Tetsuo gets his powers from amoebas. She's making an analogy. What Kei is saying saying is if you gave an amoeba the power of a human, that amoeba would be incredibly dangerous, because amoebas do not have the discipline of a human. They just consume and devour anything in their path. So if there was in fact a giant amoeba, it would just be slithering around and fucking shit up for everybody. It would be uncontrollable. So subsequently, Tetsuo is a human with the power of a god, and a human with godlike powers is incredibly dangerous because humans are emotional, humans are fallible, they're not omnipotent. Humans act without considering the repercussions of their actions, which is exactly what Tetsuo is doing right now. He is so obsessed with finding Akira, he will destroy anything that stands in his way. Also, Kei is not talking about the transference of energy or ancestral memories. She's talking about the energy and memories contained in all living things. In the world of Akira, the mythology of the film, all energy and all knowledge is possessed by everyone. It's just a matter of unlocking that power, which is what Kei means when she talks about upsetting the balance. What if, through experimentation, you unlock the power of a human in an amoeba? What if, through experimentation, you unlock the power of a god in a human? This is the point Kei is making. This sentiment is echoed again when Kyoko specifically says the power of Akira exists in everyone, and when that power awakens, the individual must choose how they will use that power. Now, admittedly, like a lot of the streamlined version, the dialogue in that scene is a little wonky and it may seem a little confusing at first, but it does make sense the more you watch it, especially when you look at it in the context of Kyoko's explanation later. The Pioneer version of the film does a much better job of cleaning up Kei's dialogue and making her analogy seem much clearer. If Bennett was confused, all he had to do was not argue with the movie and pay fucking attention. Or he could have watched any other version of the movie that wasn't a fucking VHS tape from 1994. But, you know, like I said before, that might have not made a difference either, because as we've seen with Grave of the Fireflies, Bennett can't connect dots, fucking subtext goes right over his head. And you want to know what? After doing these two responses, I'm starting to think during a film, Bennett needs someone to sit next to him constantly who can pause the movie every 15 minutes and explain to him what he just fucking saw.
and Kaneda manage to escape the prison and run into one of Kaneda's friends, who says what we already know, that the Bell End has been sent around the twist and is on a murdering rampage. Now, as condensed as the plot is in the first half, the majority of the second half is just ball-numbingly long and pointless battle scenes between Tetsuo and the army. I've gone on the record that these kind of scenes are just fucking pointless to me and only serve to pad the runtime, and the case certainly doesn't change for Akira.
Yes, Bennett, the scenes of Tetsuo fighting the army only exist to pad the runtime, just like the scenes of Seita and Setsuko playing only exist to manipulate the audience. Once again, I think it's kind of telling Bennett thinks action scenes like these are pointless. Why do you think he says that? I think it's because he's heard film critics say it, and he's just fucking repeating it. Just like with Grave of the Fireflies, when Bennett bitched about Seita not learning anything through the course of the film. He's heard other people say that shit, so he's gonna fucking repeat it, whether it applies to what he's fucking talking about or not. He's heard people bitch about the pointless action action in a Michael Bay movie, so regardless of how it connects to the plot, all action scenes like these are pointless. I guess the action scenes in Die Hard are pointless. I guess the action scenes in Hard Boiled are pointless. I guess the action scenes in Raiders of the Lost Ark are pointless. Now, I'm not trying to strawman Bennett's position. I'm just trying to understand what he means. I'm just taking him at his word. The words he used. These kind of scenes are just fucking pointless. What the fuck does that even mean? Scenes with explosions, scenes with the military, scenes with psychic powers, and why are they pointless? Call me crazy, but if Bennett's going to dismiss an entire fucking section of the movie, it would be nice if he gave us an explanation as to why. I'll tell you why I don't think this scene is pointless, and I won't even mention the fact that this is one of the most beautifully hand-drawn action sequences ever created. I'm not going to mention that back in 1988, nobody had even seen shit like this before in a movie. All I'm going to talk about is how this scene is relevant to the plot. Earlier in the film, Kei talked about how dangerous Tetsuo could be with ultimate power, and that sentiment was reinforced by Kyoko. In fact, Kyoko said Tetsuo had already chosen how to use his power. The sequence Bennett describes as pointless is merely the film showing us Tetsuo's choice. Tetsuo has chosen to wield his power irresponsibly. Tetsuo doesn't care how much damage or devastation he causes. He only cares about his selfish motivations. This action sequence is the beginning of a chain reaction that's going to lead to Tetsuo losing control of his power, the resurrection of Akira, and the total destruction of Neo Tokyo. In other words, the scene Bennett described as pointless is the fucking money shot, and is probably one of the most important parts of the fucking movie. Also, if Bennett hates pointless action, then he would really hate the Akira manga, because the Akira manga has like 10 times the action scenes than the movie.
Fire of purification, burn the filth from our souls, burn with flames our contaminated hearts. Do not be afraid. Cleanse your bodies. Enter the flames. Our salvation is near. Akira comes.
Wait a minute, if Akira was supposed to be a top-secret project, how come he's so widely known that a religion has popped up proclaiming him as their— you know what, fuck it.
The Akira religion is explained in the Colonel's meeting with the government officials. Nezu and the Resistance are leaking information about Akira to the public. As I've already stated plenty of times before, the dialogue for the scene is a little fucking clunky in the streamlined version.
Hey, we've heard some very ugly rumors, Colonel. Some say it's you that's been stirring up the people just to appropriate more money from us. Never! That's a lie! Well, where do you think these fools get their ideas from? Now they're turning the whole thing into a religion.
But it's made much clearer in the Pioneer version.
And I have had several reports. Reports on anti-government elements. How they're using your Akira madness to whip up their terrorist further.
Yes, it's not true. It's just not.
Then what about that Akira world renewal movement? Yes, wouldn't you say that information's being leaked?
Tetsuo manages to unearth the gigantic pod that holds Akira, but Kei, possessed by the three blue children, attempts to stop him from— I don't know what. Does Tetsuo intend to merge with Akira? Beat him up? It's never explained what Tetsuo's intentions are for Akira, so it's no wonder when he finally comes across his remains that it's a gigantic anticlimax. But then Kaneda shows up and he means business, wielding an experimental laser weapon. The same laser weapon, I remind you, that Tetsuo managed to shrug off multiple times. Okay, why is he able to deflect multiple lasers shot at him, but can't handle one all of a sudden? Oh, god damn it!
Tetsuo is looking for Akira because Akira is in his head. Akira has been in Tetsuo's head since he was in that centrifuge thing earlier in the film. In a way, it's as if Akira is calling out to Tetsuo. Kei is trying to stop Tetsuo from reaching Akira because the characters believe Akira's resurrection will lead to the destruction of Neo Tokyo. And the reason Kaneda is able to shoot Tetsuo with one of the lasers he was deflecting before is because Tetsuo is starting to lose control of his power.
Their fight, however, is interrupted by a goddamn satellite beam that for some reason singes off Tetsuo's arm, and only his arm. One would wonder why a blast that powerful would only injure such a specific part of his body.
The human body is simultaneously very fragile and very resilient. Some people step on a landmine and are blown to pieces, and some people step on a landmine and only lose a leg. Why does that happen? Who the fuck knows? Why is it? Sometimes you can knock a beer bottle off a table and it'll hit the floor and shatter into a million pieces, and other times you could hold a beer bottle by the neck and bash it against the floor and it doesn't break at all. I have no fucking clue. It's just one of those fucking weird things that that fucking happens. You know, I made a joke before about Bennett needing someone to stop the movie every 15 minutes and explain to him what's happening, and that's literally what I'm fucking doing right now.
One would wonder why a blast that powerful would only injure such a specific part of his body if one wasn't already wondering what kind of powers an amoeba has that allows for Tetsuo to jump into outer fucking space, breathe vacuum for God knows how long, and then reconfigure the wreckage into a prosthetic arm. Yeah, I'm still fucking pissed at this explanation. What the fuck do amoebas have to do with any of this shit? I mean, goddamn, this is stupid.
It has nothing to do with amoebas, you literal fuck. It was an analogy. Do you not understand what analogies are? If somebody says they're so hungry they could eat a horse, that doesn't mean they actually like to eat horses. Could you imagine being this guy's friend? It's probably annoying as fuck. I mean, if you went to a movie and he asked you how the movie was and you said the movie was shit, Bennett probably thinks you went to the theater, sat down, and they just showed you a picture of shit. As clunky as the explanation for the source of the psychic powers is in the streamlined version of the film, you have to be a pretty fucking exceptional individual to think the movie is literally saying Tetsuo gets his powers from amoebas.
The light devastates pretty much everything in the area, but leaves Kaneda alive along with Kei and the Colonel, and the film ends on the mother of all non-endings.
I am Tetsuo.
I call bullshit. I'll admit, as much as I ragged on Akira, there is something about the film that captures a sense of wonder and mystique to this day. The story is distilled as all hell, the subplots go nowhere, and the setting isn't nearly as fleshed out as it needs to be. But there is no other film, let alone animated film, that captures the same amount of grandeur and mind-blowing visuals that Akira does. It has a rightful place in cinematic history, not just in anime history. Yes, the adaptation left it a simpering pile of stupidity, but at least it's an important simpering pile of stupidity.
I have to admit, the ending of Akira is the weakest part of the film. The reason being, Otomo was still writing the manga, and he hadn't fully developed the ending of the story yet. So the ending of Akira the film does feel very rushed. However, as truncated as it is, if you were paying attention, the ending of the film is pretty easy to figure out. The Psychic Kids use their power to resurrect Akira, then transport Tetsuo out of this world, and Tetsuo becomes the god of his own universe. One thing I do want to talk about, though, is Bennett's closing comments and the vague niceties he throws out. He did the same thing with Grave of the Fireflies. He wants to say something positive, but he didn't understand anything about the movie, so he's just going to repeat vague praise he's heard other people say. The visuals are good. Well, why are they good, Bennett? What's good about them? Akira is an important movie. Why is Akira an important movie? Why do you think it's important? Bennett sounds like a high school kid doing a book report on a book he didn't read. He's just saying what he thinks the teacher wants to hear, but he's never bothered to figure out what Akira is actually about. So, what is Akira actually about? I've spent a lot of time talking about the plot, but what are the themes of Akira? Well, like a lot of other anime from the 1980s, and similar to the aforementioned Grave of the Fireflies, Akira is the product of post-World War II sensibilities. The film begins with a massive explosion destroying Tokyo, and throughout the film, people mention the Great War Japan has just recovered from. In all of his bitching about the plot of the film and jokes about the dubbing, Bennett has completely missed that Akira is an allegory for post-World War II Japan. The labor strikes and student protests in Akira mirror the reaction to the real-life Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security between the United States and Japan, which was first signed at the San Francisco Presidio in 1954, then amended in 1960. The treaty said any attack against Japan or the US that happened in a Japanese territory under Japanese control would require action from both the United States and Japan. When the treaty was enacted, student groups and labor unions took to the streets to protest because they feared the treaty would lead to more hostilities against Japan in East Asia and could be the start of more Japanese militarism and imperialism. These concerns are echoed in Akira, with protesters holding signs that specifically say oppose imperialism. In 1964, Japan was selected to host the Summer Games in Tokyo. The hosting of the Olympic Games was seen as Japan's re-emergence to the world stage and showcased Japan as a future world power. This idea is once again present in Akira, with the Olympic Games being mentioned several times throughout the film and the Olympic Stadium serving as the location for the film's climax. Neo Tokyo is very much a stand-in for 1960s Japan. With all of the post-war symbolism, it becomes very clear Akira is commenting on life after war, and maybe even more importantly, it's commenting on the nature of war itself. But what is Akira saying about war? On the surface, one would assume Akira is an anti-war film, in the vein of Grave of the Fireflies. After all, a government experiment that unlocks ultimate energy and leads to the destruction of a Japanese city is very much analogous to the atomic bomb attacks of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But that's only part of the story. The other important part is Tokyo is rebuilt into Neo-Tokyo, then destroyed again for the exact same reason. Rather than looking at war as an evil that should be avoided, Akira the film and Akira the manga see war as an unavoidable mechanism for change. In the world of Akira, the violence of war and the aftermath of war is very much a symbol for the death of the old and birth of the new. In other words, Akira views violence as a necessary byproduct of the endless cycle of life. Tokyo is destroyed, then reborn as Neo-Tokyo, then it's destroyed again. In the film, even the character Akira dies with the destruction of Tokyo, but is reborn with the destruction of Neo-Tokyo. I mentioned earlier that I don't really look at Akira the film as an adaptation of the manga, and more as a different take on the same story, and I feel this idea is exemplified with the character of Akira himself. In the manga, Akira is someone who has unlocked ultimate power and has become consumed by that power. Akira in the manga is a shell of his former self, but he's also very much alive. Akira in the film is dead. In fact, I've always thought Tetsuo's fate in the film was the same fate suffered by Akira 30 years earlier. When Tetsuo has visions of Akira and visions of his organs spilling out, it's no coincidence we see these images in succession of each other, because this moment is not only foreshadowing the climax of the film, it's also flashing back to the unseen past of the film. It stands to reason, like Tetsuo, Akira awakened to ultimate power, couldn't control that power, exploded, and all that was left of him were some of his organs. Tetsuo's journey in the film is simply another part of the endless cycle of death and rebirth. Akira and Tetsuo are the same. They've gone on the same path, and that's why Tetsuo is so drawn to Akira. Unlike the manga, Akira the film spends less time focusing on the theme of death and rebirth as it pertains to politics and religion, and mainly focuses on death and rebirth as it pertains to the individual, specifically Tetsuo. Tetsuo is reborn several times throughout the course of the film. Tetsuo goes from being a shy kid to a destructive psychic to god of his own universe. The symbolism of Tetsuo appearing as a giant baby before he's absorbed into the energy ball shouldn't be lost on anyone. Interestingly enough, the stages Tetsuo experiences through the course of the film is very much a mirror for the stages and individual experiences through the course of a life. In the beginning of the film, Tetsuo's shy and he rides his bike with Kaneda's gang. Tetsuo and the others spend most of their time fighting with the clowns, living a life free of responsibility and consequence. This is very much Tetsuo's childhood phase. The bikes are nothing more than big toys meant to be played with, and the fights with the clowns don't have any repercussions. Nobody worries about the consequences of crashing their bikes or smashing someone over the head with a club, because from their point of view it's all a big game. However, childhood cannot last forever, and Tetsuo's childhood dies when he encounters Takashi on the highway. From this point on, Tetsuo is reborn into his teenage years. When the psychic powers awaken in Tetsuo, he becomes brash, rebellious, and prone to emotional outbursts. The Colonel serves as a father figure trying to rein in Tetsuo's actions, but Tetsuo doesn't listen because he thinks he knows better. Even the psychic children serve as a great symbol for teenagers, because what is a teenager other than an old child? Ultimately, Tetsuo is unable to control himself and self-destructs, leading to the violent end of his teenage years, giving the impression the only way to destroy teenage nihilism is through total self-destruction. It's at this point at the end of the film, Tetsuo is reborn as a god, which could be looked at as a symbol for his adulthood. In this incarnation, Tetsuo is calm, reserved, presumably wise. He has now successfully transitioned from an innocent child to an out-of-control teenager, and now finally to a calm and collected adult. Each time Tetsuo transitioned to a different stage, it happened violently. First with the explosion of his bike, then through the destruction of his physical body, reinforcing the idea rebirth is only possible through violent annihilation. Now, to be fair, this is just one interpretation of one specific aspect of the film, but the idea of death and rebirth can be applied to every aspect of the film. For example, Neo-Tokyo itself is caught in violent uprising. The government is overthrown in a coup d'etat, and the government officials are all killed. Also, the film begins and ends with the destruction of Tokyo. All change in Akira happens violently, leading one to draw the conclusion Otomo is suggesting the only way to save a society is to destroy it and to start all over. So these are the reasons I find Akira to be an interesting film, and in some ways more interesting than its manga counterpart. There's plenty of subtext and ideas to digest in the Akira movie, and it would have been nice if Bennett tried to engage with those ideas instead of doing a review where he just bitched, "Don't the voices in the dub sound funny?" And to be fair, just because I've been defending the Akira movie doesn't mean I think everything about the film is awesome. Narratively speaking, it's a less satisfying literal story than the manga, and there most certainly are plot elements that could have been removed from the film. You could have taken Nezu out of the movie and changed the motivation of the resistance, and it would have helped the film flow much more smoothly. Also, as I stated earlier, the ending of the film feels really truncated. I think the movie would have benefited from another half hour. An extra 30 minutes would have made it more clear Tetsuo was losing control of his powers, and it would have helped clear up things that might have been confusing to the audience. But honestly, I actually think the fact Akira becomes somewhat surrealistic towards the end is sort of a benefit, because it forces the audience to think beyond the narrative and consider the subtext. It also forces the audience to rewatch the film and pick up on things they might have missed the first time. Look, I didn't fully understand Akira the first time I watched it, but it started to make more sense with each subsequent viewing. The problem with Bennett's video, and the reason why Bennett's Akira video sucks, is because it's done in complete bad faith. He watched the worst version of the movie available. He made no attempt to understand any of the ideas in the film. He was a smug asshole who bitched about things not being explained. Even though the things he was bitching about were explained, he just wasn't paying fucking attention. You know, I'm reminded of a quote from Harlan Ellison.
We are not entitled to our opinions. We are entitled to our informed opinions.
Bennett doesn't have to like the movie Akira. He's free to like or dislike any movie he pleases. But if he's going to do a review, he has an obligation to inform himself. There is no value to Bennett's Akira video. You, the audience, will not learn anything from watching it. Dare I say, you will be dumber after you watch it. I encourage everyone to watch the Akira film and engage with the ideas themselves. Beyond its rich visuals are themes and ideas that are worth contemplating and taking seriously. I don't expect everyone to like the movie. Akira can be very divisive, but I do believe the more you give the film a chance and invest in it, the more you'll get out of it. And you wanna know what? Read the Akira manga too. It's a great fucking read, and it will give you a different perspective of the film. Anyway, I've been fucking rambling on for way too fucking long. Until we meet again.